In a secluded mountain dojo during Japan's feudal era, a seasoned master posed a single question to a student that would redefine his path, asking Tishi how many enemies he could defeat if 10 stood before him. The young samurai replied with certainty that he could defeat them all, yet the master calmly corrected him, explaining that the instant he imagined defeating all 10, he had already been defeated by the first. This lesson revealed a core samurai truth. Real victory is born from awareness rather than action, from the mind rather than technique, and from inner stillness rather than the blade itself. Those who grasped this truth became legends, while those who failed to do so met destruction. This wisdom extended far beyond combat, reflecting life itself, as people exhaust themselves battling careers, relationships, health, and meaning, while losing because their attention is scattered everywhere except the present. Tishi himself embodied this struggle, having trained for years with flawless form yet remaining trapped by fear, his thoughts spiraling during practice as he obsessed over outcomes, judgment, and failure instead of the moment before him. His master made it clear that skill without presence was worthless, and warned that without learning to be fully grounded, Tishi would never become a true samurai. That night, Tishi understood that his weakness lay not in his body but in his mind, and he committed himself to discovering the missing element. The following day, sword training was replaced with cleaning, and Tishi observed how his master performed even this simple task with total focus, transforming ordinary movement into something meaningful. This demonstrated the essence of beginner's mind, approaching each action without expectation or fear, with attention fixed solely on what is happening now. Tishi realized that his failures stemmed from constantly living ahead of the moment rather than within it. He was instructed to apply full awareness to everything he did, to eat only while eating, walk only while walking, and swing the sword with nothing else occupying his mind. Through meditation and disciplined practice, he confronted how challenging true presence was, yet gradually his thoughts loosened their grip, allowing moments of clarity and calm to emerge. With time, this awareness deepened and reshaped even the simplest actions. When he returned to sparring, his movements flowed naturally without conscious effort, guided not by memory but by immediate awareness. He understood then that presence was the foundation of all warrior strength, enabling clear response instead of fearful reaction. After sustained practice, he faced his final trial against his master, who wielded a real blade while Tishi held only wood, and despite the danger, Tishi remained steady, focused, and unattached to victory. When his master deliberately exposed an opening, Tishi perceived the trap and chose restraint, demonstrating wisdom rather than aggression, and this insight earned his success. His master revealed that the blade itself was insignificant compared to the power of presence, yet reminded him that this achievement marked only the first step. Tishi was then sent to train among Zen monks, where he surrendered his swords and learned endurance through silence, discomfort, and stillness. Months of meditation, labor, and mindful living taught him to observe thoughts without being ruled by them, uncovering deeper layers of awareness. His final challenge came when he was sent alone to confront bandits threatening a village, and instead of force, Tishi met them with calm presence, unwavering stillness, and honest words. His grounded awareness dissolved their aggression, allowing their leader to recognize his lost honor reflected back at him. Conflict ended without bloodshed, and Tishi returned with the realization that presence does not conquer through violence, but transforms through clarity. Years later, as a teacher himself, Tishi passed on the same lesson to new students, beginning not with combat but with sweeping, teaching that awareness is the true weapon, the source of freedom and mastery. The samurai path he showed was never about destruction or dominance, but about living fully awake, carrying presence into every action, every breath, and every step of one's life. As Tishi matured into his role as a teacher, he began to understand that the greatest challenge was no longer mastering presence within himself, but guiding others toward discovering it on their own. Many students arrived at the dojo filled with ambition, craving strength, recognition, and victory, believing that mastery lay in sharper blades or faster strikes. Tishi saw his younger self reflected in their restless eyes and rigid movements, And instead of correcting their technique first, he observed their breath, their posture, and the tension they carried without realizing it. He noticed how their minds jumped ahead to imagine success or feared failure, never resting in the simple act of standing, breathing, or listening. Rather than lecturing them, Tishi structured their days around ordinary tasks, assigning long hours of sweeping, carrying water, chopping wood, and sitting in silence. At first, many resisted, confused and frustrated, believing they were being denied real training, but Tishi knew that without awareness, every strike they learned would be hollow. Slowly, through repetition and discomfort, some students began to notice the restless noise inside their minds, the constant urge to escape the present moment. Tishi taught them that this discomfort was not an obstacle but a doorway, a signal that awareness was awakening. He explained that presence is not achieved by force or control, but by allowing attention to rest fully on what already exists. As seasons passed, the dojo became a place not of loud commands or relentless sparring, but of quiet intensity, where every movement carried intention and every pause held meaning. Tishi emphasized that awareness was not limited to the dojo or battlefield, but extended into daily life, into how one spoke, listened, ate, and even how one faced pain or uncertainty. He told his students that a distracted mind creates unnecessary suffering, while a present mind reveals clarity even in hardship. Through stories of his own failures and lessons learned among the Zen monks, he showed that true discipline was not rigidity, but consistency, the willingness to return to the moment again and again despite distraction. Some students left, unable to accept a path that demanded inward confrontation rather than outward achievement, but those who remained transformed gradually, their movements becoming lighter, their reactions calmer, their presence unmistakable. Tishi observed that as awareness deepened, aggression naturally softened, replaced by confidence rooted not in dominance, but in clarity. One winter, a former student returned after years away, now a hardened warrior burdened by battles and regret, seeking relief from a mind that would not rest. Tishi welcomed him without judgment and guided him back to the simplest practices, reminding him that peace was never lost, only forgotten beneath layers of noise and identity. Over time, the warrior relearned how to sit, how to breathe, how to witness his thoughts without being consumed by them, and through this process he began to heal. Tishi realized then that presence was not only a path to mastery, but also a path to restoration, capable of mending wounds no blade could touch. As word of the dojo spread, leaders, monks, and even former enemies came seeking wisdom, not to learn how to fight, but how to live without constant inner conflict. Tishi spoke little, often answering questions with silence, allowing others to confront their own restlessness rather than relying on explanations. He taught that presence could not be transferred through words alone, but had to be experienced directly, moment by moment. In time, Tishi grew older, his body slowing while his awareness remained sharp and expansive. He spent long hours watching the wind move through trees, listening to rain strike the earth, finding in these simple moments the same truth he had learned decades earlier in the dojo. When students asked him about legacy, he smiled and said that presence leaves no monuments, only lives quietly transformed. Near the end of his life, Tishi gathered his students and reminded them that the world would always demand their attention, pulling them toward fear, ambition, and distraction, but their freedom lay in choosing where their awareness rested. He told them that battles would continue to exist, both within and outside, but victory would always belong to those who could meet each moment fully, without resistance or escape. When Tishi finally passed, the dojo remained, unchanged in structure yet alive with his teachings, not preserved in scrolls or statues, but embodied in the way students swept the floor, bowed to one another, and faced challenges with calm eyes and steady breath. His story lived on, not as a legend of combat, but as a reminder that the greatest strength a person can cultivate is the ability to be fully present, awake to life as it unfolds, carrying awareness into every action, every breath, and every step, just as the true way of the samurai was always meant to be. Tishi continued. His journey, the understanding of presence, began to influence not only moments of conflict or meditation, but every ordinary interaction of daily life. He noticed how awareness softened his speech, sharpened his listening, and removed the need to prove himself in conversation. Where once he had reacted quickly to criticism or praise, he now observed emotions arise and pass without being carried away by them. This inner stability created a quiet confidence that others could feel. Even when no words were spoken, presence became a form of leadership, not asserted through authority, but expressed through calm clarity. In teaching his students, Tishi emphasized that mastery was not achieved by collecting techniques, but by releasing mental noise. He reminded them that impatience, ambition, and fear were not enemies to be defeated, but signals calling attention back to the present moment. During training, he encouraged pauses, silence, and deliberate movement, allowing students to experience the difference between forced action and natural response. Over time, those who practiced presence discovered that effort decreased as effectiveness increased. Movements became precise without tension, decisions became clear without overthinking, and challenges were met with curiosity rather than resistance. Tishi often explained that the greatest obstacle was not distraction from the outside world, but attachment to inner dialogue. When the mind stopped clinging to imagined futures or remembered failures, reality revealed itself as manageable, even simple. Through seasons of teaching, Tishi watched students transform not only as warriors, but as human beings, carrying awareness into family life, work, and solitude. He knew then that the path of the samurai was not confined to a dojo or a battlefield, but extended into every place where attention could either be lost or reclaimed. PR. Essence, once understood, was no longer a practice to remember, but a way of being that quietly shaped a life of balance, clarity, and inner freedom.